Hey, we're talking to Don Duncan from NuDetect here. Now, NuDetect is actually a Mastercard company now, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, when was it acquired?
About last year.
Okay, and can you tell us a little bit about what it does? I know it uses behavioral analytics to detect fraud.
We do, and what we do is we use multiple data points to understand who the user is behind the device.
Right.
So where many solutions may be using device metrics as a means to identify an individual, many users have multiple devices they use throughout the day.
Right.
So instead of looking at the car, we're trying to understand the user behind the car, so that as a result of that, you understand the intent of that user, whether it's a good user you see frequently, or whether it's somebody that could be impersonating them to actually commit online fraud.
Okay, can you run through a few of the steps you use to actually detect that behavior?
Sure.
Unless that's classified.
No, not at all. And if I could actually just use this
Sure.
graph here. So we use multiple data points, and the analogy I use is looking at low resolution versus high resolution. So starting with device connection and the location information, which provides a lot of data. But as I mentioned before, users are going to be using different devices throughout the day. They're going to be using an iPhone, they're going to be using an Android device, they're going to be using a web application. So looking at this from a multi-channel perspective. And what we do is start adding these additional layers, because the more layers you have in terms of data, the better understanding you have in regards to who that user is and whether you recognize them or not. And one of the key things, I think, to your point, is what we do is not using any personal identifiable information. We're taking everything from the device, it's being encrypted on the device and being sent up to us so that we can actually take that risk score and then return it to you, so you, inside your application, can make educated decisions as to what that customer experience will be like.
Right.
So if we look at passive biometric verification, this is where we start looking at all those users who are using devices, web or mobile, and we start painting that picture in terms of, is this an actual human, or is this maybe a form of automation that, because of a data breach, for instance, that user ID and password is being repurposed on other sites, not just on your site, but other sites in terms of committing fraud.
Right.
The behavioral analytics is where we look at how do you use that device. So as an example, the analogy going back to that device as a car, we look at how do you drive that car. So as I take the device and I, whether I'm left-handed, right-handed, do I long press, short press, what's my typing cadence, do I prefer portrait, landscape? All those are things that we can actually use to start creating a signature without actually knowing your name. That could be used as a means to compare whether it's really you or somebody trying to impersonate you.
Very interesting. Now you say you don't store any personally identifiable information, but I guess over time you would build a pretty sophisticated profile of how a person uses their equipment, which would be unique.
Yes.
If someone were to be able to translate that.
Very much so. And that's where we start using that as a means to, as you're seeing daily those data breaches being announced in terms of organizations, credentials are being leaked out there. The user ID and password doesn't have the same value. So how can you provide a custom experience without introducing friction in it to validate that user? And to your point, those additional data points gives us a means to determine, very much as that video is showing, taking the concept of, as somebody walks into a store, I recognize them, I may not know their name, but I see them over and over again. We're taking that concept online.
Okay, excellent. Well, are you able to give us a short demo of what it does?
Yeah, so let me just go through here. So what we're doing here, and as an example, is I'm actually just going to enter these credentials here for one user. And I think what we need to do is actually just shorten this name down here. So as you can see here, I'm entering my credentials. And I'm going to enter this password, which, as you can see, is not a short password. It's not something you typically see as a result of going through a data dictionary online from a database. It's fairly unique. It's got a great variation of characters. But again, if there's been a data breach, that kind of validates that password down the line. So here I'm going to log in, and then what I'm going to ask you to do is see if you could actually enter that.
Okay. And the password. EA. Don't you hate it when you do that in real life? BYBA. Okay, so I'll try to log in with that.
Okay. So I think as you went through and you saw myself typing and yourself, as you entered, there's a different cadence in terms of the way the information is entered, how you interacted with the device. We start looking at these visualization behavior patterns, and as a result, we can start saying, how do these deviate from a previous login versus a current login? And is this actual human, or is it somebody impersonating them in terms of a script or a bot that just happens to have those user IDs and passwords? Right. And as a result of that, we can start doing that comparison, and then that comparison is something that you can use inside your application.
Okay, excellent. So does this system at the moment only work for people who are logging in from a device, from a mobile phone or a laptop?
Not necessarily. So when you look at the journey from an application perspective, there's multiple areas of potential risk. There's login, there's account profile information, there's payment information inside your application. We can look at complete user journey from start to finish to even payment, where, and one of the reasons why we're here at Money 2020 is our support for 3DS2. And so as a result of being to validate those users, we have the ability to build on authentication, and that authentication helps, especially with the new protocol, in regards to ensuring that there's no reason why that user should be rejected if they've been validated. And we can take that and use that as a score to expedite so that there's reduced card abandonment inside the application.
Okay. And I know this is an extreme example maybe, but what if someone is injured or incapacitated for a while and they're trying to log in, but they can only use their left hand? That has happened to me.
And you know what you described is a great use case, because you don't want to have a situation where you're penalizing good users just because there's a variation, such as if I go skiing and I'm left-handed, I break my hand and I have to use my right hand, my cadence is going to be different. Because we're not concentrating on one single data point, we're using multiple data points. We can look at that and evaluate that accordingly, and then provide you that intelligence to say, hey, there is a variation, but the variation is this and why, and then you can determine whether or how you respond inside your application.
Okay, cool. Have you come across any privacy concerns about people who are a little bit worried that you're building such a detailed profile of their behavior?
I think as we go through and we start talking about, that's a valid concern. One of the things, as I mentioned before, there's no PII that we're seeing with NuData, so everything's encrypted at the device, sent up to us. But what we've also done is, as a result of our relationship with Mastercard, we've actually gone through and done the GDPR compliancy in regards to, as a solution with web privacy, especially from a regional compliancy perspective, especially as we were talking about Europe, and as North America starts seeing what's happening there and adopting some of that model. That's where we've already actually met that compliance, and as a result of that, I think we can address many of the concerns.
Because I guess it's pretty strict the way you have to store your own profiles of people, lest that ever be...
And we're not actually looking at people per se, we're looking at entities.
Okay.
And so we don't necessarily know that you by name, but we know it's an individual. Okay. Again, very much like somebody comes in the store, I may not know your name, but I recognize you, and that recognition is what we're using.
Would it be possible to build a profile of an entire organization of people? So just... so that someone from that company is logging in, or is that just too broad?
Well, the nice thing about that is that, when you look at large organizations where you have multiple lines of business, what you have the ability to do is, especially a financial organization where you have online account creation, you have credit card applications, you may be applying for a mortgage. There's no reason why, as an organization, you can't share that information across multiple business units. Because again, going back to that concept of a familiar user, if I've seen them before, I want to be able to provide services that are meaningful for them. If I know that they're a good customer because I've engaged with them previously, that gives me the ability to take that and use that as a means to start positioning other services that may be of interest to them.
Okay, right. And will you see other third parties accessing this information, or you're selling it to them?
So we don't sell the information. What we're doing is we're partnering with, especially with many organizations who have an existing fraud management system in place. We're looking at how can we take this intelligence and complement their existing solutions. So they may have a case management tool where they're doing manual reviews. They're looking at, somebody's been flagged with inside their existing tools. We can take this, and that helps them to actually manage their operations costs from a fraud perspective. And it's really, we're part of really a broader solution that many customers are trying to do in terms of addressing the concerns in terms of addressing fraud, but not impacting that user experience.
Okay, that's all very fascinating. Is there, where can people go to see your demo video online?
So you can definitely go, if you go to www.nudata.com, nudatasecurity.com, you can definitely see some of the information I posted here in terms of the screens. The other thing you can also do too is we're also going to be posting the ability to request a demo. So as you have interest and you see something there, you have the ability to go online and we can actually schedule something to go a little bit deeper and also have that discussion with you as to what is your existing challenges and how can we help you with those challenges.
Awesome. All right. Don Duncan.
Thank you very much.